Are you ready for the full moon? It's tomorrow morning. I'm recording this the day before the Sagittarius full moon in 2024. And I have some interesting things I want to share with you, especially if you are a mutable sign. So that would be a Gemini, a Sagittarius, a Pisces, or a Virgo. So all of those play a part, but as we know with astrology, and if you're a novice or new to this, just remember that we are all the signs. And so it doesn't really matter how, like, what's your rising sign or what's your sun sign. There are so many nuances to astrology that it still will be applicable to you. So the biggest question is, what is showing up for you during this full moon portal? And that portal lasts about 2 days before, maybe 2 to 3 days before, and then 2 to 3 days after the full moon. So if you take in full context this week as a whole, I think you're going to have some insight into what is being presented and what is it meant to teach you. So as we dive into this, I just want to remind you, let me pull up this, that a full moon is really this reflection of our emotional state and our emotional growth to where our identity is. And so when we look at the sun moving through Gemini, just beginning the journey through Gemini, it is sort of like, hey, what about this part of our identity? And the moon opposing that says, but do I feel safe in this part of my growth with my Sagittarius self? It's part of that process, that the phase of growth that is happening with Sagittarius energy. It started 6 months ago, and that would be around right before Christmas, middle of December. That was when the Sagittarius new moon was, and that time period started a new cycle of Sagittarian growth for you. And the full moon right now is a reflection of that growth. Did you have goals back then, 6 months ago? What were your intentions? You know, how do I want to move towards my dreams? What things do I want to understand better? And so when we get to this period of this phase growth and phase cycle, we are examining, what has happened? What has changed? How are we doing? And we have some unique energy to support us in that examination of growth of our Sagittarian nature with this Sagittarius full moon. But we also have the support of the sun saying, okay, like, let me shine a light on the things that you might not be seeing so that you can continue this journey of growth with your Sagittarian self. So there's lots of layers to the conversation of the full moon, but that's one of them that I love to bring to the forefront, is because it's not just a moment in time. It is part of a bigger phase cycle. So as we begin and reflect on this, we see an interesting pattern here. So I want to share with you, oh, not that. Let me get this put together for us. All right. Sorry, this presentation. Got it. Okay. So as we look at this full moon, I do want to highlight a couple of things. So when we see, there's a few different aspects that we just want to highlight, especially because they add a new flavor to this full moon that I think is going to help you integrate it better and learn how to look for the right things. So the Sagittarius full moon for where I live will be at 7:52 a.m. Mountain Time. So you might live in a different time zone, different place, different latitude, longitude. So latitude, longitude. So make sure you pull up your own chart. You can always do that on astrocharts.com and see what is the chart looking like, the sky looking like for where you live and the time of the full moon. It will be at 2 degrees 55 minutes. And of course, it's going to present the opposition of the moon and the sun, of the moon in Sagittarius and the sun in Gemini. That opposition naturally creates a tension of, well, identity around what am I learning? I just want to think more. I want to learn more. I want to gather more. And the moon is like, but what have we learned about it? Like the facts are one thing, but like, actually, what do we understand about what we've learned? So it's sort of an interesting time. It's also an interesting time of year because this is when all the graduations are happening. And that is a very Gemini Sagittarius access energy, like the opposing nature of that. So you got your degree, but what are you going to do with it, right? Like, what is it going to become? What is it going to mean for your life? You're ready to head out in new adventures, maybe that, or new dreams, and maybe that's exciting, but also nerve-wracking, right? So it is, that is one of the aspects showing up here on the full moon. Another big aspect is to consider that there is a conjunction of Jupiter in Taurus, and we have Venus in Jupiter, Venus, and the Sun out of sign conjunction. And Uranus is there with just a little further out in that conjunction, but their energy is all sort of probably playing together. This presents a unique Taurus flavor to this Sagittarius full moon, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But I think the biggest thing that I want to highlight during this Sagittarius full moon is this cradle aspect pattern. As you can see, there is this like trapezoid, isn't that right? That is a sort of upside down cradle, all right? And it's created with sextiles that are shorter aspects with this asterisk sign. And then it has trines that go across to different planets, and then you have the opposing energy. Now, this cradle aspect is not exactly with the sun. It's actually connected to Jupiter and Venus. And so it's an interesting sort of sideways aspect that one thing is triggering the other, but they're not necessarily directly connected. They are connected, but not like, it's not all at once. It's sort of like a little bit more jagged and nuanced in that application. So when we look at a cradle, something that is really important to understand about that is it is presenting an opportunity for maturity and growth, stepping out of maybe the younger version of oneself and saying, hey, it's time to leave the cradle. It's time to grow up. And the tendency can be to be a little bit more nervous, maybe wanting to avoid the maturation process, be like, I just want to be a kid still. I don't really want to face this. And wherever you are in your life, we all have things in our life that are still old, immature patterns of thinking or behaving or believing. And what could those patterns be? Well, when we look at the opposition showing up here to present the tension and the challenge or the patterns, it could be with the topic of everything that's going on in Venus, in Taurus here, with our money, our values, the things that really bring us that sense of peace and serenity. That's Taurus. And the planets, remember, are just the tools to help get and achieve that Taurus energy. And so some of us might have fallen into patterns, especially with Jupiter in Taurus for the last year, and it's going to be shifting into Gemini this month. But we might have overspent. We might have thought our value comes from the things that we gather and we attain. We could have had a lot of financial shakeup, sort of wake up calls. And maybe that is really what is being presented as an opportunity to mature out of, is old money patterns, old money beliefs, because it's time to grow up. It's time to not do that anymore. So one of the other things that, oops, I'm just hearing. Oh, I have something in the oven. I have to go grab it. Hold on. I'm gonna be back. I promise. Oh my gosh. Where's my pause? Pause recording. All right. Nobody's home. It's just me, and I was recording this video, and I was baking bread, and I forgot that I was baking bread while I was doing this. So the smell of bread, very Taran, is floating through my house. But so let's talk about, where was I? Dang it. The money issues. So it's time to mature out of that and to really sort of look at this maturation process as a new adventure, as a new opportunity. And when you look at a cradle, what is the key points of a cradle that you want to help work with the opposing energy of, like, do I really have to deal with my money? Do I really have to deal with like understanding my values? This moment is so pivotal for if you are building your future truly based on your values. And that takes some maturation just in and of itself. Because if you're young, you're like, I just want all the money in the world, And you get to an older stage and you're like, well, maybe money isn't everything. And what does that look like? How do you build a life that is truly based off of your values? So with that, it is sort of like, what are your dreams, and are your dreams and your goals and your aspirations and your adventures really truly based off of your values? So as you do that, you're going to be presented with that opposition of energy. And then you have the tools to help you navigate this process during this full moon portal are these points right here. It is Neptune in Pisces and Pluto retrograde in Aquarius. So let me just explain about those two really quickly, and we'll wrap this up so this is not too long. But Neptune in Pisces really is this, at 29 degrees even, is this opportunity to lean into your spiritual knowingness and maybe even more questions, more depth, more emotion than you might be comfortable with. And in that place, you might want to escape. You want to be like, I don't want to deal with this right now. I just want to run away. Please, nobody talk to me about this challenge around my values or around what I want to see happen or create in my life. Very Taran themes, okay? And that would be avoiding the lesson. That would be persisting in immature behaviors and not really allowing yourself to grow up and grow out of this and leave the cradle per se. So how to avoid that? We'll get like sort of settle into a stillness, a compassion, a level of forgiveness for oneself for whatever the past has been, so that you can move forward with a new clarity, a new vision of what it is that you're creating for the future of your life. All right. So that would be sort of a synopsis, very simple synopsis of Neptune in Pisces at 29 degrees. 29 degrees can bring up some of those, let's say, those karmic patterns. And so it can be uncomfortable, but if you're doing the work, and if you're really seeking to like settle into that, use your spiritual practices, and you have lots of tools to do that to help you see and craft a new vision, a new awareness of how to move forward. All right. And the second one is this Pluto retrograde in Aquarius. Now, most times people don't really apply Pluto to themselves. They think of it as more generational or a more societal energy. But because it's retrograde, it is very applicable in this new moon, in this full moon aspect, because retrograde means that it's closer to the earth. It means that it's an intrinsic transformation process, a rebirthing of who you are, see yourself as. And because it's an Aquarius, it means that it's more leaning into authenticity, more into an alignment of your understanding of yourself versus like what was projected and put on you to be, or to how you show up in life. So those Neptune and Pluto both are really supportive to helping you navigate how to move forward, how to step out of the cradle, how to move into a new adventure, and how to really build a life based off of the things that you truly value. And that's going to take some reflection and some time. So I would encourage you during this full moon to lean into the Taurus energy, do the simple things, a lot more listening, a lot more like getting connected to the earth to receive those messages, those impressions, and those insights, so that you will know how to craft the vision of that you're trying to accomplish, the things that are you really, moving in the right direction here. This is really important because as we move into Gemini season more and more, there's going to be a plethora of energy that sort of comes in and distracts you and sort of like creates this mental air kind of chaos. And if you don't have a grounded sense of what you truly value, you're going to get sort of like thrown by the winds and really potentially get off track for what you really want to create. And then of course, as we move into summer, that can become even more accentuated with the Cancer Capricorn axis showing up. So for this full moon, back to it, it's time for maturing. It's time for stepping forward, and it's time to really get clear on your values, doing so in an authentic and a spiritual way, so that you have the vision and the courage to show up in your purpose, your missions, and then to move forward in that direction. The Gemini new moon will present other opportunities, that's in another 2 weeks. But just think of, what is it that I really desire? What does I really value? And is it really more things, or is it more simplicity? I wrote today, I was like, can I just have a shirt that says, do less? Like, sometimes the more we want, the more complicated our life becomes. And it can be crazy and hard that way. So lean into simplifying, lean into listening. Um, Maybe not so much the knowing or assumption that you know, but being a curious beginner, a curious learner in this process, and see what messages and insights come to you over this full moon portal, and be prepared to integrate that, to really receive that information and make it a part of how you proceed in the next phase of growth. For the last, again, we're talking about that Sagittarius phase. 6 months ago, we entered this new like adventure, kind of like, I want something more. And then this is the 6 month mark. And then after, in the next 6 months, it's completing that Sagittarian phase of growth that really invites you to be like, okay, did I live true to my dreams? Am I aligned to my dream? Am I being authentic in that? And is it really based off the things that I value? All right. A tool to help you do this is an essential oil that I love. I truly love this oil. I love tree oils. This is called Hinoki. It's a Japanese cypress. And I love this imagery because Hinoki was a wood, or is a wood, that is used in Japan to build their temples or their long-lasting structures. And this is one of those structures. I don't know, I just grabbed this, so I'm not sure exactly where it is, but it is the kind of wood that just lives forever. And so if the life that you're trying to build for yourself is one that is long lasting, that it truly is this beautiful adventure, stable and secure, being based in your values and vision is so, so important. So I would really encourage you to utilize this oil. I'll put a link for it in the comments. It's like 25 bucks. It's so beautiful, so earthy. It is made from the bark of the cypress tree, or the Japanese cypress tree called Hinoki. And it is just a gorgeous oil, amazing for meditation, amazing for like calming of the nervous system and support to clearing of the mind, to really ground yourself and know how to move forward. So as you go into this experience of the full moon, I really hope that you make time to let the reflections of, the opposing sun and moon and all the other planetary alignments support you in your own growth. And that's how I love to use astrology. If you found this helpful, please like, subscribe, and follow along. I would love to have more, to share more of this journey with you. Thanks again, guys. Have a great full moon.